this video we're going to explore the duties of the governing body disciplinary committee and the hearing in which the body reviews the head teacher's decision to exclude. Every school has a governing body made up of the school's governors. Generally, their job is to be involved in the day-to-day running of different aspects of the school. One of their main responsibilities is to form a disciplinary committee to review permanent and certain fixed-term exclusions. The governing body has a number of duties, some of which it can delegate or give away to a small group of school governors. However, there must always be a minimum of 3 school governors at any disciplinary meeting. Throughout the videos, I will refer to the governing body. What I mean by this is a panel of 3 governors that review an exclusion, not the whole school governing body. Usually, the governing body will also have a clerk. A clerk is the person responsible for organising the meetings, circulating the right papers and recording the meeting's minutes. A clerk can be an external person hired specifically for that role. Sometimes the clerk can also be employed by the school, for example the personal assistant to the head teacher. If this is the case, consideration should be given to the need for the clerk to be neutral and procedurally fair in this role. In the description box below is a link to the guidance about the school governing body and its functions. There are a number of duties that a governing body has in relation to the exclusion process. These occur at a hearing if it's required, while preparing to make the decision, and following a decision. For information on what happens following a governing body's decision, please see this video. So when does there have to be a hearing? Depending on the type of exclusion, the governing body's duty to consider it will vary. Here you can see a table showing exactly when a governing body will need to consider an exclusion at a hearing and in what timeframes. Whether or not there is a hearing will depend on the number of days a pupil is excluded for. Throughout this video, days in this context will mean school days, that is, days not including the weekends or holidays. Where the exclusion is permanent or is a fixed term exclusion for more than a total of 15 days in a school term, a hearing is required. The governing body has the power to reinstate the pupil. The hearing must happen within 15 days of the exclusion decision. If the exclusion is for less than 15 days but more than 5 days in a term, a hearing will only take place if the parents request it. It must take place within 50 days of the exclusion, and again, the governing body have the power to reinstate the pupil. For an exclusion that is 5 days or less, no hearing is required, but the governing body must consider written representations from the parents. Because the exclusion is so short, the governing body do not have the power to reinstate the pupil. No matter how long the exclusion, if a pupil will miss a public exam or a national curriculum test while excluded, the governing body must hold a hearing within 15 days. However, they must also try to take reasonable steps to meet before the exam. If this is not possible, the chair of governing bodies may consider the reinstatement independently. It may be possible for the student to return to the school for the sole purpose of sitting their exam. If a governing body hearing is required, the governors have a number of important duties to fulfil. The first is the duty to plan and arrange the meeting. They must invite certain people to the hearing to make representations. These include the parents or guardians, the head teacher, and a representative from a local authority. But academies and free schools do not have to invite the local authority representative to the hearing. The governing body must allow friends and representatives to accompany the pupil and their parents if they so wish. The body must also try to arrange the meeting for a time and date that is convenient for all the parties, but also kept within the time limits that we discussed earlier. However, if the hearing is outside of the time frame, that doesn't mean that the decision will automatically be invalid. The governing body should not discuss the exclusion with any party outside of the meeting. In advance of the meeting, the governing body should ask for any written evidence. This could be witness statements and any information from the school, such as the child's special educational needs records if they have any. Copies of all the written evidence, a list of all the people attending and the details of the meeting should be given to all the parties at least 5 days in advance of the meeting. If a pupil under the age of 18 is going to be a witness, the governing body should seek the parents' permission first and invite them to accompany their child. It is also important that the body considers what steps need to be taken in allowing the excluded pupil to attend, speak and be understood at the meeting. The age and understanding of the pupil will be highly relevant, for example if the child is very young. If it is not possible for the child to attend, the governing body should consider how the child's view will be heard, for example by a written statement. If any parties at the meeting have disabilities in relation to mobility or communication, the governing body have a duty to make reasonable adjustments so that these people are able to attend and make representations at the hearing. If the pupil has an exam to sit, the governing body has discretion to allow the pupil on the school premises for the sole purpose of taking that exam. It may not always be appropriate, but it should be considered. The way the meeting is conducted should also be reasonable, lawful and procedurally fair. One party to the exclusion case, such as the head teacher, should not be in the room with the governing body unless the other party, such as the pupil, is also present. Equally, the governing body should ensure that everyone has a fair opportunity to present their case. A governing body can choose to either uphold a head teacher's exclusion decision or directly reinstate the pupil, either immediately or on a particular date. Usually the decision is given a day or so after the governing body hearing. If it was a fixed term exclusion and the child has already returned to school, the governing body must still consider whether or not the decision was justified and should treat the hearing just as seriously. This is because unjustified exclusions have the potential to affect a child negatively in the future because they go on the pupil's school record. The governing body must consider whether or not the decision was lawful, reasonable and procedurally fair. They must have particular regard to the head teacher's legal duties as well as the legal test for permanent exclusion. It should focus in particular on what steps the head teacher took to ascertain the situation, consider other alternatives and ensure that their duties were complied with. Information about the head teacher's duties as well as the legal test for permanent exclusion can be found in these videos. The interests of the excluded pupil, as well as the interests of other pupils and staff in the school, should be taken into consideration. The circumstances in which the pupil was excluded will be relevant here. The representations of the parties, made at the hearing or in writing, should be taken into account. The governing body should ensure that the parties are able to participate in the meeting and that their views are effectively heard. For any facts in dispute, for example whether or not an incident took place, the governing body should decide the fact on the balance of probabilities. This means they must decide if it was more likely than not that the fact is true. It is important to have a record of everything said at the meeting, so clear minutes should be taken. The governing body should ask all the parties to withdraw from the room before making a conclusion. It is important that they note the outcome of their decision on the pupil's educational record, along with copies of the relevant papers and minutes of the meeting. For more information about understanding the governing body's decision and the next steps after the decision has been made, please see this video. Thank you for watching this short video on school exclusions. The links for all the videos mentioned can be found in the description box below.
We hope that you've enjoyed the video and you found the information that you were looking for. If not, please visit our YouTube channel and watch our other videos for more information on school exclusions.
Bye!